Hello and thanks for joining us on Relational Practice, a social work podcast. I'm Dr. Jodie Park.
And I'm Rose Mackey, and we are both social workers working in child and family here in New South Wales, Australia. Today we are recording on Ewan Land.
We are. Yes, we are. We're recording in a different place today. Thank you for listening. We would love for you to subscribe, rate and review our podcast and connect with us via Facebook, Instagram and via our YouTube page.
We endeavour to add content and videos to the platforms regularly.
Endeavour, I love that.
We also have our webpage, as you all know. Please head to Relational Practice, a socialworkpodcast.com.au, all one word. You'll find access to episodes, some ambiguous loss printables, and any other updates and information that we have to share, we will put on there.
Eventually we'll put on there. But keep visiting. Keep visiting. Eventually we'll get it. We'll get to it. All right. So today, firstly, welcome back, everyone. And today we're going to talk about aggression. Full disclosure, this is our second recording of this topic because we both listened to the first one and thought we cannot put that out.
I mean, no.
It's not really happened before, though, that we've had to re-record a whole episode.
No, not because of, Yeah, it hasn't happened. But anyway.
So here we are recording on a Sunday.
Talking about aggression, and it's the least emotion I feel right now.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty comfy here, isn't it?
So comfy. Like, aggression. Oh, aggression. It's not normally how I feel.
No, which is good. Really, that's not normally how you feel.
True.
So we are going to talk about aggression. We're going to talk about two different types of aggression. We're going to talk about reactive aggression and instrumental aggression, what they look like, kind of what drives them, I guess, what motivates them as a response. I think as a response, is that the right way to put that? Maybe what motivates them.
What motivates them. Yeah.
And
what we can do as social workers working in and around aggression.
Yeah. Should we start with why this topic was something we thought we would do?
Yeah. I'll say, you were the one who said, let's do aggression. And I was like, aggression, come on. Why? And then I actually thought about it and thought, I didn't know that much about aggression. So one, then I didn't want to do it because what am I going to talk about? But two, what an interesting topic to actually, I hate the word unpack, but actually dive really deep into and try and understand aggression, because in the fields of child and family and most domains of practice, we see it. In some instances, we're saturated in it. But understanding that there are two different types and the motivation is different, I think is actually very helpful as practitioners. So that's my motivation. But yours, I think, is a little different to doing aggression.
Is it really?
Why you wanted to do it?
I actually can't remember why I wanted to do it. It seemed like such a long time ago that we planned this. I think for me, though, if I can just, I guess maybe this is the reason. You tell me if this is what I said before or not. But I think social workers and anybody really that works with people, we deal with aggression all of the time. And, you know, there's intensities and degrees of that aggression. Digression. Yeah, that's right. So it's not like everybody is in your face kind of in a really hostile kind of, physical way, which when I say the word aggression, that's what I usually think of. I jump straight to that extreme. But there's so many different levels and it presents in so many different ways that I think understanding that it's all aggression actually helps. I think it helps on different levels. Firstly, I think it helps to protect yourself a little bit more as a worker, because, when you're thinking about the transference of trauma and you're thinking about vicarious trauma and burnout and, the issues that we as workers that work directly with people.
Ollie's with us. He might be getting a tad aggressive.
Are you getting aggressive, Ollie? I think it's reactive aggression, though.
I would agree.
All right, he's going to stop. Okay. I think as people that work with people, we are constantly surrounded by the emotions that people bring to that, our own emotions and their emotions. We have to understand aggression to be able to understand our own responses to aggression.
Yes, and my memory of your motivation in recording a episode on aggression was that I'm not sure if it was a client or someone you were supervising, but you were like, they completely misunderstood the aggressiveness in this interaction. And then I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And you were like, well, and talked about how we often do think aggression is that in-your-face verbal abuse or, leading up to a physical assault. And you were like, no. Aggression kind of can look like many different things. And then I think you're like, well, let's do aggression because
wow,
there's a need.
I actually can't remember any of that, Rose. What does it say about me?
Maybe that you overworked.
All right, let's get into it. So the first type of aggression we're going to talk about is reactive aggression, which...
It's a great term, isn't it?
I mean, it's all in the name, isn't it, really? And reactive aggression is sometimes called impulsive, hostile, an eruption. It can also be known as effective aggression. And that's because the aggression really is motivated by the emotion of the situation. So not the emotion of the situation, but the emotions that kind of are within that person.
So that person kind of perceives there's a threat.
Yeah.
And the threat may be real, but it also may be perceived, but there's a perception, there's a threat here.
Yeah.
And then what happens?
So it's kind of, if you think about it as a hot response, and that kind of illustrates what happens.
Yeah.
So there might not even be, you know how people kind of get stuck on what was the trigger? The trigger for the reactive response. You can't always see a trigger in reactive aggression because it can present as, someone going from like 0 to 100 in like 20 seconds, or it can present, like a slow progression.
Yeah, okay.
It just kind of depends on the person, on the scenario, on the emotions that are fueling the reactive aggression.
Okay.
The thing about reactive aggression, though, is that it can become part of how someone copes with the world.
Do you mean like a kind of habitual response?
Like a coping strategy.
A coping strategy. Okay.
Yeah. Which kind of makes sense if you think about the way that our coping strategies are formed and then maintained.
Yep. It does make sense. I guess, yeah. I'm thinking about the lengths, but we'll come back to it.
Do we? Do you want to...
I just think if you recall in the self-harm episode we did, and we looked at Michelle Mitchell's language around voluntary self-harm, and I think it was habitual self-harm, wasn't it? Was that the language?
Mm.
And so one is before it becomes that blueprint or that, neuroscience and everything that happens there with our neurons, or our neural pathways, that there is some... it's not yet kind of mapped into our brain as a coping strategy or as this plus this equals this. And I wonder if aggression is the same. The more you become reactive to a perceived threat, and the more that is your coping strategy or your response or your behaviour, whatever language, over time, does it become your blueprint of how you cope in the world?
See, I would say that it does. And I think if you think about this from a DMM perspective, I can never remember what that actually means.
Dynamic maturation model of attachment. Is that what you're talking about?
How good are you? How do you just remember that?
Because it's your model and I love it, but I have fear to talk about it. But
yeah, but I never actually remember what it's actually called because in my mind I call it a DMM model.
And you know the model. I know the name. Very different levels here.
But basically, when you think about what that model says in terms of the way that we kind of cognitively and emotionally either inhibit or exhibit our emotional responses to situations, then so inhibit is where your cognition kind of remains in charge and you kind of push emotions down. When you are kind of exhibiting, is that the right word? What word would I be using?
Inhibit. Exhibit would be the opposite.
So when you're on the other side of that spectrum and your emotions are in charge, then your cognition kind of takes a step back and your emotions are in charge. But part of that, because it's kind of, this model is like a circular model. If you don't know this model, don't just listen to me because I'm terrible at explaining it, but go and have a look because it's actually an amazing model that helps really to understand how our experiences, our relational experiences lead to that blueprint formation. That's the way that I see this. And when I first learned about this model, honestly, it was like a light bulb went off. I was like, wow, that makes so much sense. But getting back to aggression. So thinking about that model on that side where people are very emotionally driven, where they're they become quite externalized in terms of how they present their emotions.
Yeah.
Aggression can be part of that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually think it can become a coping strategy. Reactive aggression.
Reactive aggression.
Different to instrumental aggression, which we'll talk about in a bit, but we're just talking about reactive aggression. So people sitting there and going, that's rubbish, because really people use aggression to get what they want. They absolutely do, but that's called instrumental aggression.
So what is instrumental aggression?
Well, do you want to do that now, or do you want to talk a little bit more about reactive?
Or do we want to, let's go into reactive then.
All right, because I think let's just talk about what it looks like.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Because it's very impulsive and emotionally driven.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There has to be high emotion attached to it for it to be reactive aggression. Yep. It is typically, as you said, in response to feeling threatened, disrespected, or cornered. It's that kind of it's kind of like the inaction of the fight response.
Yeah. That's all I've been thinking about as I've been talking. Falling down the ladder and then that fight response.
Yeah.
My mouth is going quite dry. My fists are getting clenched. My face and my tone.
I might be hearing a roaring in my ear.
Yeah.
Yeah. My body starts to become tense. I get really hot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I just explode.
Yeah.
Yeah. It can be, which is that kind of physiological arousal. Yeah. So it's always actually accompanied by physiological arousal. You can't be kind of heightening your emotions and yet your body's still relaxed and laying back.
No, that doesn't make any sense.
No. It kind of is caused by some kind of provocation, so some kind of trigger, but that trigger can be real or perceived to be real, which is why it's tricky.
Yes, and I think we all know triggers are interesting. Some triggers we're well aware of and others we're not, like smell, a sensation, a sound, depending upon, our experiences, our context. Our triggers may be quite hidden, but all of our sensories, what's that word? Sensory threshold can enact or can help trigger us. And we might not sometimes ever really get to, which I think you were saying earlier, to understand what was the trigger or how it is related.
Yeah.
But we become triggered.
Yeah.
And then this real emotionally driven response, reaction, which, if you think about it, is enacting protection for yourself too, isn't it? I'm going to become big and loud or however it's going to be displayed, but in a way to keep myself safe.
Which is the demon model, but it's also the fight response. Yeah. Yeah, we're just looking at it through different perspectives.
Different lenses,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because there is little or no planning, usually.
So little cognition or no cognition?
Little cognition, no planning, really no planning attached because it's the reaction. However, and I'll say this now and we'll talk about it a little bit later, remind me, there can be scenarios where it might start off with planned aggression, and then because the body becomes heightened because of the planned instrumental aggression, it can kick over into reactive aggression because the blueprint in your brain goes, oh, hang on, my body's doing this. That must mean I must act this way.
I've been here before. This is how we cope.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Well, let's make sure we touch on that when we talk about instrumental aggression.
Absolutely. It is associated with strong negative emotions. I mean, I'm going to take out the word negative. Strong emotions.
Strong emotions. Negative and positive emotions is really language that is hard for us to swallow.
Yeah. Because it's an emotional response and it happens for a reason. Yeah. Such as anger, such as fear, such as frustration, such as lots of different things, really. Yeah. Now, this is an interesting point. So that Rose and I kind of talked about when we recorded this the first time, because the research says that reactive aggression is more frequently involved, happens when, let me start this again. Reactive aggression more frequently involves family members or intimate partners as victims, which you can understand.
Absolutely can see that.
But we were also going, I don't know how that fits with the research and the literature we know about coercive control, about kind of intimate and domestic violence, about how that all kind of plays out.
Yeah.
So, but I think maybe we settled on this place where two things can be true.
I think we did. And the research says, what did you say? The research said it's more likely.
Yeah, more.
So we were like, I think I went to that very black and white space and hang on, and you can think of a number of instances where it's absolutely not true. So yes, I think we settled more likely, but let's not negate that it can also be complete strangers. Can it be, walking down the street and experience someone's reactive aggression?
100%. Absolutely. Yeah. That's where we settled, and I'm glad we settled there, because both things make absolute sense to me.
Yeah.
All right. Impulsive reactive associated with high emotional reactions, as we said a lot now, and can be seen in people that experience depression, PTSD, intermittent explosive disorder, any condition really where your emotional context can override your cognitive context.
Yeah.
So lots of different things, really.
And that makes sense too, doesn't it? Like if you think about depression, PTSD, intermittent explosive disorder, those types of diagnoses, conditions, whatever language is that we want to use, you think about what is common around that is agitation, withdrawal, social isolation, frustration.
Yeah. This kind of interplay between what is real and what is perceived.
Yes.
What is real, but what is not real, but I believe it to be real.
Yes, and it feels real. It feels so real, whether it's perceived or real to the people experiencing the emotions or the context they're in. It absolutely feels real.
Yeah, it does. Which is why it's so tricky to work with, in a way, because you don't really know what is the actual trigger at times.
Yeah.
And the person doesn't always know either.
No. And I think I often think about this in like that walking on eggshells.
Yeah.
I sometimes as a practitioner, when I'm working with people with PTSD, I feel the eggshells.
Yeah.
I haven't worked with someone with intermittent explosive personality disorder for many years.
Me too, for a very long time.
Which is amazing and lovely.
Yeah.
Because I found that really tricky, because I absolutely think back, like I was always holding my breath.
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to say that's going to potentially trigger or upset this person? If it was a home visit, who's going to be on the other side of the door? Because they're so tricky in their emotional responses. And I do, my kind of visual is that walking on eggshells. And the same for PTSD. You want to be trauma informed and trauma responsive, and you want to provide a space of healing, but oftentimes we can be re-triggering or re-traumatizing unintentionally, and then that sets the trigger off.
I also think, and I think this is probably, I'm finding this a lot in my current private practice, working with a lot of people that have diagnoses of CPTSD, some complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and we know that there is a childhood prevalence of abuse and neglect in complex post-traumatic stress disorder, because that's kind of where the complexity comes in.
Yes.
And so I think I've worked with a lot of people recently who their first response to internal heightened emotions of any sort is reactive aggression. And those emotions can be, things that you would probably think were happy things, anything that kind of changes the physiological makeup of the body in any way can cause a reactive response.
Yes.
And it's tricky. This one person in particular I'm thinking about, she finds it really hard to live her life. It has such a profound impact on her day-to-day experiences, because she doesn't know why she reacts the way that she does. And she disassociates at times while she's having a reaction.
Yeah.
So she doesn't always know what's happened either afterwards. And she has such shame and guilt about it.
Listening to that, I worked with a young man who absolutely displayed lots of reactive aggression. And he had a psychologist at one stage who recommended that the like surveillance cameras in his house. I know that's the wrong language, but he had security systems that audio and visually recorded. And the psychologist suggested, after one kind of extreme reactive aggression episode where he also disassociated, the police ended up being called, and it was a whole criminal then offence. But the psychologist recommended that he rewatch himself in his as he like to see what he looks like when he was in this reactive aggressive state.
Wow.
And I remember it came up at a case conference not long after some criminal charges, and I think I just sat there quiet for so long because I just was wondering, what is the purpose? What is the benefit?
Yeah.
Is this going to be helpful? Is this going to be traumatizing?
Yeah.
What's the end goal here? I'm not a psychologist. And there was another psychologist in the room. There was a psychiatrist, a whole lot of, a very multidisciplinary team. And I think we went around and around for 40 minutes, but I think I stayed very silent, just thinking that as a strategy to assist someone to see what they look like in reactive aggression. I was like, I'm not sure this is helpful. And I absolutely never, that person never saw that footage. That's where we landed. But I still wonder, like, what would be the benefit? Whereas something like timelines and thinking about the lifespan and going back and understanding, and I know it's complex and it's complicated, but if you've got a complex PTSD diagnosis, you have that trauma experience from childhood. So we're talking this is a coping strategy, could be ingrained. How would that not be more helpful than just showing someone, here is you on video camera at your worst?
So surprised you kept quiet.
I think because I just thought, I'm clearly out of my depth here. I would never have even linked that is how he would use his video surveillance.
Yeah.
And because it was so foreign to me, I thought, well, I must be on the wrong page, because it didn't even occur to me that this might be not a treatment option, but a way to assist someone to deal with and understand their reactive aggression. So I kept quiet because I thought, I'm out of my depth.
Yeah.
Blew my mind, I have to say. And this was a very experienced psychologist.
I would find that, I would find that really hard to understand that as well. I would find that really hard because maybe there is some kind of, I don't know, maybe it is some, new treatment where you immerse somebody in, I don't know, a dissociative episode. I don't know. It just seems
it's almost like exposure therapy.
Yeah.
Which is a therapy that I don't know that much about, but I always dance around because not my area. So if anyone wants to talk about exposure therapy, I'll be quiet too, because it's nothing I have any level of expertise in.
It's an interesting strategy. I mean, it wouldn't be something that I would probably think would work very well, because surely what it would do, if I was someone who had, my coping strategy was linked to a reactive aggressive response. That's how I manage things. Surely watching this footage is going to make me feel internally heightened. So therefore...
And I can perceive that as a threat, right? I can feel cornered. I can feel frustrated. I can feel shame. I think like all of those things. Yeah. Anyway, I'm glad that's your reaction, because I often think about that and think, was I wrong to be like...
You know, it reminds me of, this is a different situation, and it's a little bit of a bummer to be fair, but I'm going to say it anyway, of... we know amazing foster carers, don't we?
Yes,
we do. And in my mind, foster carers are honestly, such an invaluable required resource that should be supported, and there should be more and more resources put into supporting foster carers. And I'm thinking of this one particular set of carers who used to have secret video cameras, and they used to show the footage back to the children when they would lose control. So these were little kids. They would make them sit down and they would actually show the footage, and the motivation for that was to shame.
I was going to say, if you're going to tell me this was a growth mindset, I'm going to tell you it's bullshit.
I'm sure they justified it as a learning opportunity. But it was about shame. I mean, there was also lots of other stuff going on in that home.
Yeah.
It's just one part of the very unhealthy, dysfunctional puzzle. But yeah. That springs to mind as well when you were talking about that, and I was thinking those people are the worst people I've met in a long time.
Probably ever met, yeah. Isn't it interesting how, we all have different, methodologies and different practices, and, the hope is always that we do no harm. And absolutely, I don't know everything. I'm so happy to learn from other people, but the idea that you can show someone a video of them in their worst moment, if I think about if you wanted to show me in my worst moment, I'm not sure how I'd recover, and I do not have a diagnosis of CPTSD or PTSD, and I can't even imagine how you just get back up and keep functioning after that.
Well, you remember, I'm going to tell you all a story. I'm going to tell you a story that I actually feel quite a little bit of shame about, but I'm going to tell you this story. So I look after Rose's dog when she goes away, and she looks after my little fella. So we have a really good arrangement. And I was, do you remember what? Oh, yeah, you might not know. So I remember once I was walking Cash, and this other dog ran at us. And Cash he's such a sweet boy, but he can become really anxious really quickly. And he had this kind of anxious response. And in my mind, I was thinking, so it wasn't a real threat. It was a perceived threat that he was going to slip his collar and he was going to run, and something was going to happen to him. And so the owner of this dog that was off lead, just roaming around, the dog was probably a sweetheart, but still he was rushing at Cash. Cash was freaking out. I had this stress response thinking something's going to happen to him. Oh my God, not Cash, little baby, something's going to happen to him. And so the owner comes out, and she just like downplayed it. She was like, oh my goodness, he's just saying hi, or something like that, she said. And I completely went off, Rose, completely.
Emotion took over.
Emotion took over, this reactive response. I was yelling, I was swearing, and it was in response to a perceived threat. But if someone had recorded that, and if I had to watch that back, I would feel so much shame for my behaviour.
Yes.
There would be no learning in that at all.
No, we can't learn in a shame cycle.
No.
There's no learning. But also I wonder then what it does about you're then watching it. So hearing different things, seeing different responses. So there's then more potential triggers, right? But I also think the power of you sharing that is that any one of us can be reactively aggressive at any point in the time. Whereas automatically, if it's from a polyvagal theory, we can fall down a ladder. If it's from the DMN perspective, we can have instances where emotions override cognition. It's a human response.
Yeah.
So the fact that we would, in some instances, maybe choose to say to some people, let's watch you in your reactive aggression as a learning experience is kind of wild, because I don't know any human that would be immune from the potential of being reactively aggressive at times.
Yeah. It also, it's also when children have a reactive aggressive response, and the adult feels like or thinks that the best way to manage that is by making them explain it blow by blow.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, that's not going to be helpful.
No.
It's not going to be helpful. But I think for, children who don't have, who don't have a history of abuse or trauma in their lives, who just kind of, have this kind of everyday experience of being parented in a positive way, they can manage that. And it can be kind of turned into possibly a learning situation.
Yep, depending on how it's done, absolutely.
And depending on how it's done. But for people who have a trauma history, it's not going to be a learning. It's just going to cause shame.
Yeah. I mean, that was my initial thoughts. When that meeting ended, I remember walking out thinking, knowing everything I know about this man.
Yeah.
Whoa, we landed on that's not going to be helpful. I didn't contribute, but that's where the team landed. But even if you had been shown the video of you that day with my dog, like, I just don't know how the shame cycle is a space where anyone can have a learning, a growth mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I probably would just be stuck in justification. I would justify my actions as my shame response. Yeah. That's what I would do.
Yeah. I think most people would justify, minimize, deny, you'd find some denial in that.
Yeah. But you're right. I'm not an aggressive person. It's not really who I am.
No.
But I can be aggressive, And I do obviously have reactive aggression when
Yeah. And I think that's the point. We can all be reactively aggressive.
we can.
This is not just, confined to a cohort of individuals with particular diagnoses or our clients. This is just the human experience. It's about how do we experience it? How do we understand it?
Yeah.
And if we're working with people where there's reactive aggression, how do we understand it enough to be either therapeutically engage with them or continue to provide a service to them? Yeah. That's helpful.
Absolutely. All right, shall we talk about instrumental aggression?
Instrumental aggression.
Yeah.
I love the word.
Instrumental.
Don't you?
I do like it too. I remember hearing about instrumental aggression. Oh, God, how many years ago? Years and years and years ago, and it's always stuck with me. Years and years and years ago, I learned about instrumental aggression. And I thought at that time, wow, that's amazing. That makes so much sense.
What is it?
So it's the cold response, basically. And what it is a planned, calm, controlled, and purposeful, calculated reaction to get what you want. Instrumental aggression is goal-orientated aggression. That's the other way to kind of think about it.
Yeah.
It means that you act in a way that you know is going to get your needs met. Not your needs met, actually, to get what you want.
To get what you want.
And that might be meeting your needs.
Yeah.
Or it could be something else.
So reactive aggression is the hot response. There's a whole lot of emotion, little or no cognition.
Yep.
Instrumental aggression is the cold response.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of cognition.
A lot of cognition attached because it's goal orientated. It's the way to think about it. Instrumental aggression is very much about meeting a goal that you have at that time. So just think about this. So if you are someone who an adolescent, just say you're an adolescent, you want to go out at night, your mum or your dad or whoever's looking after you said, no, you can't go out at night. So you have this big reactive, not reactive, you have this big aggressive response, but the goal is to wear them down. So they say, fine, go out.
Oh my God, just go out. I don't care anymore.
Because in the past it's worked. Because in the past, when you've had that aggressive response, you've gotten to do what you wanted to do.
Had your needs met.
Yeah.
So the needs being met is the reinforcing, is it, this cold response?
Well, it can, absolutely, if that's what happens.
So interesting.
Or it could be about the fact that, because this is not, I think the way that it's kind of described, it makes me think about this kind of, really calm, cold person who's out there being this, having this instrumental aggressive response to, in their everyday lives to get what they want all of the time. And it can be that, but it can also be, if you need to, I don't know, have someone listen to you and you feel like the only way they're going to listen to you is if you're loud or if you're bigger than them or if whatever. Yeah, it can be. Do you remember I gave that example in one of our very first episodes of when I was locked in the house?
Yes.
Yeah. And so really my response could be termed as an instrumental aggressive response. I wasn't loud and I wasn't kind of big and I wasn't kind of, in their face. But what I was really calm and calculated, but I was
very purposeful
and targeted to get what I needed. And in that, and the aggressive response was probably in the way that I was using language to be able to actually enact the goal.
Yeah, to get out of the house.
Get out of the house, yeah.
Do you remember the movie Fear with Mark Wahlberg?
I don't know if I ever watched it.
Oh my gosh. Talking about this the other day with my girlfriend. Don't know how it came up, but we were like, but when you were talking about the cold response, that was the image in my head. Yeah. That movie, I think, haven't seen it in many years, but is kind of a great example of the cold response. His goal was to have access to that young girl, the daughter of the man that he then planned and was very purposeful in this aggressive, response to get his needs met.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, it's amazing.
It is. It is
to
amazing.
see it play out. And I think sometimes as practitioners, maybe we misinterpret what's happening with our clients in an instrumental, aggressive kind of lens.
Well, because it's about how it presents. It's not always being in your face and kind of, violent.
Yeah, which is why your example's helpful, because that wasn't a big violent
No, but it was
response. But it was purposeful, calculated. You were probably a little bit cold too.
100% cold. 100% cold, because that's the way I needed to be able to get out of that house.
Yeah.
There would have been no point in me going, oh, just open the door. Oh, come on, this is getting silly now.
Oh my gosh. If I was reactively aggressive in the moment, that would drive me insane.
Absolutely.
That's my response.
Because this is the person was actually thinking about it. The person that had the door locked, he was also in his own instrumental aggressive response.
Yeah. Can you flip between the two? Can you start out instrumentally aggressive? So this is the cold response, and then something happens and all of a sudden you're now in the hot response.
It's what we talked about before. Absolutely, you can.
Yeah.
You can. And it makes sense that you can. Because if you are, you've got this kind of goal-orientated aggressive response happening, whatever it is that you want, if you feel like the other person is either not going to give in, or the other person actually does or says something, or the scenario triggers something for you, your physiological processes are going to take over.
Yeah, then all of a sudden, yeah.
All of a sudden, shit's hit the fan, you're off. You're all off.
What so interesting. What else is interesting is that the research says it's more common to involve acquaintances or strangers rather than family members in this cold response. And I think we talked about that the first time we recorded it, but that to me is a little confusing.
Yeah, as we said before, when we kind of said that in relation to the reactive aggressive, that research about it involving family members, we were talking about, well, what about coercive control? That's an aggressive response.
Yeah.
Isn't it? But it's premeditated, it's cold, it's planned.
Purposeful, it's targeted, all those things.
Targeted, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I find it interesting that commonly involving acquaintances or strangers rather than family members.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just interesting language, because it can be anyone.
It can be anyone, absolutely it can be.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting to also note that research links instrumental aggression to psychopathic personality features. I mean, it makes sense in a way.
It does.
Doesn't it? But particularly the interpersonal affective dimension. So someone who uses superficial charm, someone who's good at manipulating, someone who has a lack of guilt. And reduced empathy.
Yeah.
Yeah, those people are so dangerous.
So difficult, in my experience, to work with.
Or to work, or just to have in your life. You might not even be working with these people, but to have someone in your life.
Yeah.
But imagine if you did. You've worked with people, not as clients. You've worked with colleagues. I know you have, because I know these people.
Yeah, okay.
And think about how difficult it was to work with those colleagues.
Yeah. Yeah, wow.
You've never thought of that before, have you?
No.
No, we're thinking of the same person, I'm sure. Or people. Yeah. It's really hard. It's hard. These people are so calculated in everything that they do, and so manipulative, and really use gaslighting, use whatever they can use to undermine your sense of self.
And I think what's really important to remember is that they become experts in their processes of gaslighting or manipulation, whatever it may be. So you may be like trying to understand and figure out what is happening, and you know what it feels like to be gaslit. You kind of like feel like you've been like whipped, like.
Yeah.
But for people who are using these strategies, often there's this level of expertise in it, and it almost feels like, and this is terrible language, but a no-win situation. Like you're in this game you don't want to be in, you don't know the rules, and you're playing with a master.
Yeah, just to be clear, we're talking about people who also have psychopathic tendencies.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, it's definitely playing with a master. Like it's insane. I was actually just talking to Andrew about one person in particular just yesterday, Andrew's my husband, who definitely had instrumental aggression and definitely had psychopathic tendencies, personality tendencies, and talking to Andrew about one particular interaction that we had where she was using her aggression in a way to make me do what she wanted me to do. And I remember in that time sitting back and thinking, this is the most fascinating thing I've seen in so long. And so, of course, my response was not what she wanted, which made her response worse.
So your level of cognition in that moment?
It was only because I thought this person was, how can
You'd already had an assessment.
I'd already made my mind up about this person. I was thinking we're recording a podcast, so I won't say what I would probably say, but I'd already made my mind up about this person, and I had probably less than 0 shits to give about her, to be fair. So I had no emotional investment in the interaction at all, and so I could sit back because there was no emotional investment from me.
Yeah.
This person did not feature in my life. I felt this person was very painful, individual, generally speaking, just to interact with them.
Yeah.
So I was able to sit back. It would have been different, I think, if it was someone I had an emotional connection to.
Yeah. Well, I would think definitely it would have been difficult too.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, it was fascinating. Fascinating. I mean, if I had, this is insane, but I would love to watch that.
That one will take. We'll put that one on play.
Just as a learning opportunity.
So, as practitioners, how do we...
Sorry, can I just go back and say, just to be clear, that was someone I worked with. It was a colleague. It wasn't a client. Because I was thinking, man, that sounded terrible.
No. Well, see, I assumed you were talking about a colleague.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, not a client. If you were working with clients who were displaying or, and obviously we can all be reactively aggressive, but how do you, I don't think treat's the word, but what's kind of the planning or what do we need to know as practitioners if we're thinking about reactive aggression or instrumental aggression?
Okay. All right. That's a great question. So I think what the research says is that reactive aggression is actually more treatable. It's actually...
Which absolutely makes sense.
Yeah, it really does. And that there are a number of approaches, I guess evidence-based approaches that you can use, I guess a number of modalities you can use if you're working with someone who has a reactive aggressive response.
I would say someone whose reactive aggressive response is impacting their functioning
100%.
And their relationships.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And just to be clear though, when you wouldn't use any of these if someone is in the middle of an episode.
Oh, wouldn't you?
No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. So the strategies that the treatment options we'll talk about now are doing when the person is, calm together.
Executive functioning is online.
That's right. Not when it's offline, not when they are gone. You've just got to let them have their response and you've just got to manage the environment.
Yes. You need to regulate yourself and try and co-regulate with them. Ensure your safety. Ensure their safety. 100%. Those things we know.
So CBT is probably one of the most well-established modalities to use with people with a reactive aggressive response, which makes sense because it really does target the cognitive distortions that drive that response.
Can you just share with everyone what you say about thoughts, feelings, behaviours?
Do you mean just that? That it is about teaching people that it's surprising, and it's not, well, I mean, it makes sense. I probably didn't know this once too, but, if we empower people by giving them the information that our thoughts lead to our feelings, which lead to our behaviours, it's surprising how many people don't know that. They just think that they have this emotional response, so therefore their emotions are in charge. There is always a thought. And really I'm not a CBT expert by no means, but really at the fundamentally CBT says that there is this relationship between thoughts, feelings and behaviours. And if we can teach people to become more in charge of their thoughts, to actually have some mastery over their thoughts, then it can kind of, circumvent a kind of a behaviour from occurring.
Yes. And I have found that a very useful frame. So I often think of thoughts too as the stories we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
And the stories we tell ourselves can be so damaging in the moment, but also long term.
Yeah.
And I think Brene Brown talks about them. No, it's not Brene Brown, sorry. It's another social worker whose name escapes me, about sticky stories.
Yes.
So stories that are like a Velcro and they serve a purpose.
Yeah.
To a point.
Yeah.
But they're when there comes a time that that story no longer serves a purpose, how do we take the sticky story and really understand what it was about and move on from it? Because those stories we tell ourselves, which are our thoughts, can absolutely impact our feelings and our behaviours, but they don't have to if we can master that, understand it, work on that.
Yeah. And I think one of the ways that I've been able to, probably one of the most effective ways that I've been able to actually help someone to understand how the stories that they tell themselves kind of drives their emotions and their behaviours is by using timelines.
Yeah.
And using an event, and it can be a reactive aggressive event, like something significant as the anchor point.
Yep.
And then kind of going from before that anchor point and after that anchor point.
Yeah.
To really allow them to understand that link between the story, the consequence for themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you challenge or ask what other stories may have, they could have considered at the time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that I kind of, yes, because just that stuff, we should do an episode on storytelling and stories we tell ourselves, because particularly with people who have experienced a lot of trauma in their lives, they may or may not have a diagnosis of complex post-traumatic stress disorder, but people who present in that way, then their mind is constantly kind of reeling with lots and lots of stories, and something will happen and it'll trigger this automatic story response where they're telling themselves something that is real or not real, basically. But then that whole physiological process happens after that.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I kind of get people to practice, and it takes practice, is if something happens, they start to feel their body change. So it takes a lot of practice to even get to that point, that they can start to identify their body changing. Then I get them to say to themselves, what is happening? And then what else could be happening?
Yeah.
Or in response to a story, if they hear something and then they think something based on what they hear, I say, what else could be true?
Yeah. Recently I did that with a almost young adult, so very late adolescence, and we wrote on stick-it notes.
Yeah.
What else? What other stories could you have told yourself?
Yeah.
And this person was stuck on clearly their story.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what about this story? Could you have told yourself this story? Yep. What about this story? And then after a while, they started adding stories. We had 15 different stories that they could have told themselves about what they'd heard. But what was it about this one story that was the only kind of lens you had?
Because it was the sticky story.
It was the sticky story. But you could just see that person was like, oh my goodness, I could have had 15 other thoughts. And then if you'd had this thought, what would have happened? What would have come next?
Yeah, I love
if you had this thought, what would have come next?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had masses of post-it notes, and it was just trying to open the idea of that whole thoughts, feelings, behaviours.
And how along that kind of that line, how you can circumvent it.
Yeah.
By changing the way that you think or changing the thought that you had.
Or asking a question of the person who's told you the story.
Yeah.
Having some, there's so many different things that you can do. But I'm not a CBT expert either, but I do love how you talk about it in that sense, because I think it's helped me.
It just makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? And I hope I talk about it in a much better way than I just did then. Hopefully.
Please.
All right. I think one of the things that we probably all think of, well, I don't know, I'm just talking this kind of talking for all of us, but, when I think about reactive aggression, or just aggression, actually, and sorry, let me start that again. When I think about aggression and how to work with aggression, I automatically think about anger management and anger management programs and anger management groups and blah, 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 blah. Anger management is one of the, it is kind of a well-established mechanism for addressing aggression.
It is.
It's for helping people to manage or understand their anger, but it doesn't work for everybody.
No.
And I think that is something that needs to be understood. It can't be a tick box. Yes. This person is an angry person. Let's send them to anger management.
Yes, while it's evidence-based as a, an intervention or a treatment option, it absolutely is not a one-size-fits-all. You have reactive aggression, you're off to anger management. And the other thing about anger management is it has to be the right program and the right facilitator with the right skills for that person.
And the right group. It's a group process.
Yes.
You know, the other people in the group actually have to be able to. There has to be a good fit.
Yes.
Yeah. And it doesn't work at all for instrumental aggression. They'll just sit there and play.
Yeah.
Really. They'll just play with everyone else in the group or with the person if it's one-on-one with the facilitator.
Yeah, we think the goal is to get through this program, and how I'm going to do this. Well, I'm going to do this by having lots of fun and, you know, probably setting off a lot of, like, you can imagine the, purpose that people could get out of that.
Absolutely. One of the things that's really quite good about any program that really focuses on anger management, though, is that they generally use some relaxation or some mindfulness strategies, which is really helpful when you're trying to ward off that thought, feeling, behaviour cycle.
Yeah.
Being able to actually control how your body is responding by, you know, doing some grounding or by doing whatever you need to do to distract your brain really helps to ward off the eventual response.
Yeah. So I think that there's an element of requiring and needing self-awareness, which is part of that mindfulness. And I think, you know, there's lots of people that talk about mindfulness and that we need a new language for mindfulness because the marketing for mindfulness has been, you know, I had to stop my eye roll when you mentioned mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
It is so evidence-based. It is so useful in so many domains.
Yeah.
But it's just the way I think it's been marketed, or that lifestyle influences that's come in with, you know.
Yeah.
But mindfulness is absolutely, and self-awareness are absolutely key in understanding and working through reactive aggression, but also just helpful in general.
Yeah, because in essence, what mindfulness does, strategies that use mindfulness, is that they just direct the brain to think about something else.
Yeah.
Basically, that's what it does. And by doing that, you're just calming your whole body because you're distracting. So even if you're doing breathing as part of a mindfulness activity, your brain is still telling you to do the deep breaths.
Yes. In for 5, out for 4.
Right.
Like,
it's just
trace my finger.
It's a distraction. It's a brain distraction.
Yes.
Basically. And that's why it's useful, you know, to stop the cycle of reactive aggression.
Like a circuit breaker.
Yeah, circuit breaker. That's the better word.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, you know, let's all hold hands and sing Kumbaya. I mean, I'm not into that.
I mean, that's just, And I think that's why I try not to eye roll with the mindfulness, but it is absolutely evidence-based. It's super useful for many things, especially reactive aggression.
Yeah, any change in the body that actually is then going to cause some kind of dysfunction for the person, a mindful strategy is an amazing tool to have in your little toolkit.
Yes, because it helps us from a polyvagal lens keep us at the top of our ladder. It helps our executive functioning stay online.
Yeah.
We are at our optimum, our best when we're at the top of our ladder.
Yeah.
When our cognition goes offline, you know, that's when things can go wrong.
Yeah. There is this whole emerging body of evidence that says that DBT works really well with reactive aggression. I don't know anything really about DBT other than, you know, the surface level stuff.
Yeah. So, I'm the same.
I feel like it's something, if you're a DBT expert, let us know all about it, because let us know if you'd like to come on and talk to us about it, because it's something I've always wanted to learn more about, but I've just never have. And
there's I understand, a component of mindfulness in DBT as well.
I would imagine 100%.
Distress tolerance, I think it's very interesting, just not at all anything I've practiced in, have any skills in.
No, but if you are good at it, let us know. If you want to come in and you can talk to us about DBT, we would love to learn from you.
Yeah.
Okay. Pharmacological options can be used.
Said that well.
Pharmacological. I said it twice. Normally I can't say it once.
I know.
It's something that can be used with reactive aggression. I mean, let's face it, really, it's about managing symptoms. And, you know, your medication can help to manage symptoms. It doesn't help with the root cause of the reaction, but it helps with the symptoms.
Yeah, and it's an option.
definitely an option. And, you know, I'm a supporter of any kind of medication that is going to be able to give people a break, to be able to actually work on things, to calm them down. I'm a supporter of medication.
I am too, because if I had a heart issue, I would take
100%.
medication. It wouldn't solve my heart issue necessarily. I still might need to change my diet, engage in it. And it's the same thing with any medication that's on the mental health wellness spectrum. I think if there's something that can help you, like you said, why is that treated differently to a medication for a physical condition?
Yeah, it's ridiculous that it is, because it shouldn't be.
No.
Because again, medication can be a little bit of a circuit breaker.
Yeah.
Just to give some space to be able to manage the root cause.
Yeah. Stabilize your mood.
Yeah.
Help you engage in treatment a little bit more deeper or more meaningful.
100%.
Yeah. How do you treat cold aggression, the instrumental aggression?
Yeah. It is really hard to treat. It's really hard to treat.
I mean, think about psychopathy.
Yeah. How do you treat psychopathy? Like, how do you treat that? It's really hard, because that person does not actually think there's anything wrong with them.
No. And the whole goal-oriented nature of cold aggression or instrumental aggression. How are you treating, like, understanding that having my needs met can, like, I don't know. Is there any treatment?
I think that there's some emerging literature that says that focusing on empathy, so teaching people about empathy and the role of empathy, I think can actually do some good work with, I guess, building emotional approaches for people who might not have already have that kind of scaffolding, internal scaffolding. Allows them to kind of see the emotions of other people and value those emotions of other people, perhaps.
You'd have to be so skilled, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you'd have to be.
To be working with this type of client.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah.
I mean, yeah, sorry. What were you saying?
No, I just, take my hat off to anyone doing it, because the level of skill, the level of awareness, the level of reflection, reflexivity would be extreme, I would think.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be extreme. But I think we are talking, look, let's kind of frame this. I think we are talking on that end of
the extreme end.
Yeah, the extreme end of instrumental aggression. I think we know, and we've talked about already, that there's a whole, what's the word?
Continuum
of the intensity of the reactive response. So I think for someone who, you know, you're not at that extreme end, there's no psychopathy. You've got someone who uses goal-orientated aggression, and we all use goal-orientated aggression at some stage in our lives. We will use goal-orientated aggression, and it might just be it might be something we need to use regularly, or it might be something that is a, you know, one-off, or it happens a couple of times a year, whatever. But I think if you are kind of dealing with someone who regularly uses goal-orientated aggression, you need to be really clear with your own boundaries, and you need to be really clear with the boundaries that you expect those people to have.
Yeah.
And that can be someone who's a child, an adolescent, or an adult.
Maybe we should also do an episode on boundaries.
I think so, because we have to have appropriate expectations of people, and then, because that then leads to boundaries. And then we have to have appropriate expectations or consequences, I guess, of what's going to happen if those boundaries are broken.
Yeah.
So if you have someone in your life who responds in an aggressive way to something, and you know it's because they want to get what they want to get, then you need to have this whole little bag of, I guess, skills in terms of how you manage that by making them very clear around the boundary violation for you. That makes sense. Yep. Good. I was trying to judge whether it made sense by your face, and I wasn't sure.
No, I was just deep thinking about boundaries and boundaries as containers, and how flexible boundaries need to be, and how that can, you know,
Yes.
Yeah.
Schema therapy has been found to be useful for working with people who use instrumental aggression as a kind of go-to. And the reason it's been useful is because it really does target negative core beliefs about self, others, and the world. That makes sense that it's been useful.
Yeah, it does. A lot of armor that I would imagine comes in with like people and trying to understand the armor and the scheme, and that'd be fascinating.
Would be absolutely fascinating. I mean, I kind of think that's it. There is some emerging kind of literature that talks about using CBT approaches
in instrumental aggression.
But I think that research has really been focused on different settings, like in jails or
incarcerated populations.
So really the CBT approach is kind of linked to this very rule-bound environment where, do you know what I mean?
So structured.
Where it's so structured.
So boundaried.
The expectations are really clear.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that then works. But again, I'm not an expert, but I don't know how that would play out in the real world.
Yeah. How do you transition and transfer it into a different environment?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah. That's all I kind of know about treatment options, modalities, like whatever you want to say in terms of how you would respond.
I think you know a lot though.
I mean, I don't know if I do know a lot, but that's all I know.
I think though, as a practitioner, just understanding aggression in the two kind of spheres that they exist, hot and cold, or reactive and instrumental, is helpful.
Yeah.
The language is helpful. And then thinking about how, as humans, we can all be reactively aggressive. So when you're working with clients who maybe are more often than not reactively aggressive, trying to understand what sits underneath this and how is it going to be best in my role to work with this person if this is what I'm seeing.
Yeah, 100%. And I love the way that you said a couple of times, it really is about understanding your own responses as well and how you are responding to the person.
Yes. That is something that I wish I had mastered many years ago. It is so important to understand how we react. It's so important that we know how we can ground ourselves actually in the moments of, client interactions.
Yeah.
But we actually can't be helpful to other people if we're not regulated.
No, we can't. We can't. And I think it's also really important to understand when to intervene and when not to.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you are not going to do any good if somebody is in the middle of a reactive aggressive response in particular, or an aggressive response full stop, but I think reactive aggressive. You're not going to do any good by trying to actually say to them, calm down. If they're like gone,
inflame.
It is just going to inflame. So you have to know when to pull out and when to re-engage.
Yes.
And what that needs to look like, because that will need to look differently for everybody.
Absolutely. Are we co-regulating? Are we giving space for self-regulation? How do I maintain my regulation?
Yeah.
Am I aware of my safety? All those things. And knowing that kind of a little bit like disassociation. If someone's just disassociated, you're not going to jump right back into where you left off and kick off. If someone's been reactively aggressive and they've been able to then regulate themselves or co-regulate and come back up the ladder, whatever model we're using.
Yeah.
You don't then just continue with the session or the meeting or whatever. Like, how do we actually give people space to ensure that we are not re-traumatizing, re-triggering, doing harm to people? This is really about understanding that we don't want to do any harm, and that sometimes our agendas as workers, they just need to be shelved.
Yeah.
People need space, time, whatever it may be.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think you need to have the skill to be able to identify that in real time.
Yes, absolutely. Because for some people, you can go right back into where the meeting was left 5 minutes ago and continue.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, absolutely not. So you do need to have the skill of knowing how it's going to land for that person and what's going to be best.
Yeah. And I think along that kind of line of thought is that you also need to protect yourself as a worker. So you may need to have a risk assessment. You may need to have a safety assessment. You may need to have plans in place to protect yourself. Because even though this person, this person is, usually really calm and really okay to work with, but when they get aggressive and, they kind of, all reason is gone, you're not going to put yourself in a position, or you shouldn't expect it to put yourself in a position where you're going to be unstable.
Exactly. Similar to like if people are ringing really aggressive on the phones.
Yeah, we touched about that.
How are we understanding that as workers we don't have to be subjected to aggression over the phone and expected to listen to it, to continue to take the phone call from the aggressive client who's, reactively aggressive. It can go on, phone call after phone call. Where are our boundaries around that? What does our organisation say about the expectations around that?
Do you know what? I think we've kind of touched on this a little bit in other episodes, but I feel like there is this expectation, and I don't know if this is a real thought or just my own kind of maybe judgment. But I think there is this expectation that you are the worker, you have to put up with whatever this person is dishing out because you're the worker, you're the professional. And I think that's actually a ridiculous expectation, because all that's going to do is actually lead to a burnout. It's going to actually drive this vicarious trauma response, because you should not be expected to sit on the end of the phone or be in a meeting or whatever when someone is absolutely screaming at you. Someone's highly aggressive and you are the target.
Yeah, I would agree. But I think you said earlier, it's about knowing our boundaries.
Yeah.
And for some people, the boundaries are really flimsy and non-existent, and the story they may tell themselves is, this is my job and this is, I came to, corrections. My client population is aggressive and this is part of the role. What are the stories we tell ourselves about our roles, and where do our boundaries fit in with that? And what are the conversations we have with our supervisors around what are the expectations here?
Yeah.
And if you see other people, because all of our boundaries are different, but you might judge yourself off a colleague who absolutely will sit and listen to aggressive, abusive phone call after phone call. And on the other side of the office, there may be a colleague who absolutely disengages at the first hint of aggression. So, there's so much about us personally and our boundaries, but also organisationally. What are the expectations? But I believe you are absolutely right. Vicarious trauma, burnout, stress responses from being saturated and exposed to our clients' trauma, but also our clients' reactive aggression, it can impact us. So what do we need to do about that? Have some clear conversations and some, clear expectations set.
And you don't feel like you have to be the martyr. I feel like this is kind of a legacy from thinking about social work, but just all work really with people, where it used to be referred to as the helping profession.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think the helping profession actually disempowers what we do, but it also then kind of, for me, the next step is that you need to martyr yourself at all costs, because your job is to help this person.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
I think for me that's kind of like it's like a pathway.
I think it's a good frame, the legacy, because what we know now is if we're not well, healthy, regulated, we actually are no good to anyone. So that metaphor or analogy of the airbags coming down from an aeroplane, you put your air on before you assist anyone else, is absolutely a great analogy for social work. If we're not well, physically, psychologically, emotionally, we are no good for our clients. And listening to and being continuously abused or martyred and putting yourselves in dangerous situations psychologically or physically, in having a extreme stressful job day after day where we just keep going back, is not good for us, and it's not good for our clients because we're not able to offer them.
No, 100%. But I reckon that's about it. Do you reckon that's about it?
It's a lot about aggression and some other tidbits along the way.
All right. Okay. So this does bring us to the end of another episode of Relational Practice, a social work podcast. We do hope today's discussion was helpful.
Maybe useful.
Please
ensure you're in the loop by following our podcast. Your subscription to the podcast and our social media helps us build our kind of community and gives us exposure, and hopefully makes these conversations more accessible to other practitioners. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Remember to always stay safe and continue to practice relationally.
See you later.
The